Well, here we are with another edition of the Political Minute. It's Colin James Dawson. Like it matters in a lot of ways, but, let's make fun of ourselves. I think what the main thing is that no one really cares about politics because politics has become celebrity hype again. And for everything with it as it goes, that's just how it goes. Now, see, everybody is always obsessed about how to tell if someone's lying or how to tell if someone's telling the truth or how to tell if anything's happening. So let's just go ahead with what the modern politics is. It's Dave Chappelle is going to have to run off against his buddy, let's see here, Joe Rogan, in the next political showdown. Technically, these people have walked away from multi-million-dollar bribes and stuff and have built an empire out of there, so they're a better businessman than Donald Trump because they've declared bankruptcy less. These people are very much into all the social politics, media, and no one's ever said they've said the N-word. Maybe Dave Chappelle has a few times, but, no one's complained. So, with everything being said here, this is the way that politics will be shaping down. Other than the, new I know I'm going to get it wrong, LGBTQ group. But see, they have to accept Chapelle, and they can't cancel anybody. So they're actually the only political, situation out there because they've got Q in it. And it's like to them, straight people and their gender and anything that Chappelle or the other people have said is really queer to them. So it means weird, or else like a weirdo or weird activities that people do. So, it's not just the people under Q that are out there that since it's lesbian, gay, and transgendered and the other ones out there and all that. So their homophobia thing is that they're straight phobes because they won't let people in. Now, I know I'm really going off on the deep end here, but just because there's a bunch of people that have a sex show with a donkey and they're queer, for whatever it is, because it's weird, they have to accept the straight people and also people who are not Mormons who are multiple marriage people. Yes, this is the truth about the LGBTQ community and everything else because quite frankly, they threw all their people out of whatever it was in queer back in the 80s. And queer now stands for, because we can say it because it's in the thing out there with it, and they wanted to put queer down for it. And that's what everybody in the world's told me about it, and go on that I'm dyslexic and can't read. So if that's what the Q stands for, weird straight people that have straight sex with just a man and a woman and say that's what it was and gender was from birth, they have to accept it as it. So they can't really fuss anymore and cancel anybody. So they're all screwed. Now, in this, with everything with Dave Chappelle being child molested and everything else, and he had to finish off jizzing in the guy's face to save his life, I had one of the LGBTQ community go off on me the other day because I said, yes, mistress. Don't you know you can't say that? Why, it's a French greeting. I've had people in my family who've lived in France. I know it's now after the Holocaust, it's a nationality situation for everybody. And everything else, and said that that's very sexist because it can be used in BSM, because it's Bible study meetings. So it's like the Church of Gay has showed up, but whatever it is. And it was at work and everything else, and this one girl who's there is constantly turning the television off because she goes around and tries to kill people with a remote, and she's done it once. And everything else before. And she works there for her daughter because she's trying to get a lawsuit with her husband for the local police because the only reason why they want segregation with the woke movement led by the LGBTQ community is they don't want police officers taking up the good jobs of everybody else because under Masonic laws, no one can have kids with a police officer but another police officer. And they already have a job, so they don't need an extra, $14, $15 an hour. Now, just because, a police officer show by Jerry Bruckheimer, which I'm going, please shut down Jerry Bruckheimer and everything else. I hate his fucking ass. Really does need to control her temper and does need to whatever. And I don't really care about it, but me sitting behind her as she turns it off when Zeta David is going over different assassination things, it's like, oh, come on, we all need to know it because, oh, come on, we all need to learn. She can get the real videotape to see whatever happens, and we can get the videotape on her 50-year military investigation for what it was when she went off and killed the person, and I was sitting there as a little kid. And I'm going, I know all three of you, unless there's been more than, a couple more born. I'm not supposed to be able to tell the difference between anybody because I am an unarmed security guard. And unless you pass military, you really can't physically identify people. That's why police do a lineup and military searches out the exact people that they're supposed to go after. Now, looking at all this BS, even in the state of Tennessee, she's not allowed to have anything on her that's armed since she's an undercover cop. Just like her fiance / multiple marriage husband went off on me when he first got there and said, well, I'm the training. And I'm like, I really wasn't trying to cost you your retirement, but let's just do it for everybody now at this point. Kind of like with the LGBTQ person, I just look at it and go, you're really not because someone looked at you, me, when I was 3 or 4, and we were trapped in an area that they did themselves. We're going around there killing people, calling it BDM, and sodomizing the men with a knife through their groin until they died. And going so am I not Jewish yet? Am I not the King of England? Well, if they say you're Jewish, you got to cut your dick off. I don't care how racist they say it is or anti-Semitic here. And the guy turned around and cut his dick off. And they're inbred, and they're the Mussolini family. And they have quite a few of these, and apparently another one's gone to Texas and did the same thing with some, Jewish community that only uses their tribalistic stuff that's from, Eastern Asia and stuff that they're trying to get us not to have anything to do with. And we'll never stop doing anything with Europe because it'll spread Christianity, which is illegal here, which is what they are. And I just go, you're not really LGBTQ in any way just because you're an anti-Semitic, Mussolini fascist. And anybody can take it up the ass 4 or 10 times, to try and prove they're whatever it is and claim that it's love and everything. And then you take a scooped chisel thing that you've been getting people and you just come straight down on it because it's leather tools that you can get off of the shelf and is a harder material than most knives are. That's why I'm always go with woodworking stuff in your house rather than the kitchen block over at Walmart. Sharpened screwdrivers also. But, as everybody looks at it here, and we're supposedly teaching everybody how to be better assassins, better military people, right down to police and everything, because Russia really had all the homeless people. And the only true military soldiers are over in China that they have to all go and kill and eat the Kung Fu Shaolin monks and everything else, and the Taoist and Taoist and whoever else is over there, for Rome to actually become something, and then they might not walk back into China or somewhere like that. And then we can all let them eat the lords and people that can hide out with their magic powers over in the rest of Europe. After all, they always learned how to be exiled princes and kings and royalty because they've already eaten Wakanda. And in 1984 it was real, and now it's a myth in comic books. But whatever. And the closest thing we have is Hotel Rwanda. Anyway, back to the whole thing with how LGBTQ and the woke movement elected the wrong president's group, kind of like with Biden in a way for some people. I'm just looking at it going, your argument really doesn't stand on anything, like half of what Biden's done. And he's like, I'm just making sure I let the Trump crap pass by. So it's it must be like in the woke movement, it's like, oh God, we had, people not killing black people in ritualistic sacrifices, or however they could try and make it into now. We're about to get rid of all that. Let's elect some LGBTQ people. They gotta be like that lemon guy on CNN. Oops, no, they didn't. But you can't say that about them, that they are fucking up and doing a bad job. This isn't even the birdcage people. I'm sure that's too old of a group of people from South Miami for you to even look at with their little, like, genre, especially since every 20 years, no offense, the homosexual community gets into about, like, 35, 40, like politics. And then somehow they end up the fast food heart attack 20 years later. I'm just saying with it. That's what happens. It's like it cycles out and cycles through the new fad. Biologically. People just don't live forever, some of them. There are the people with the wine, but whatever. Anyway, looking at it, queers do not encompass child molesters. I understand you're like, oh God, you're anti-Semitic. But please, Lot and them, they were of sexual age and they seduced their daddy and you just call it drunk. They got together and did a sexy dance for their daddy-o. And it's like, two girls can't hold down their old man after some really traumatic stuff and ride his dick. And then it's like, might as well just keep giving it to them. They liked it. But, I'm sure that there's other inbred groups around the world that I've just supposedly left out because, Jewish Zionist supremacy and everything else. And something about black people. Even though all the black people have been seen on television going around there and killing the Orientals. Because, white people won't live next to them. They just walk by their store and think that they're friends. Like Tucker Carlson. And no matter what, you're never going to be friends enough because somebody's going to be like, he just invited him to dinner. He was supposed to give all of his stuff to them. And I'm just like, yeah, there's not like a black supremacist movement. Which again is why I go back to Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan should run for president. These people have no real affiliations even with their own group. People complained over the marijuana movie that Dave Chappelle did, which I should remember, but I've watched that half-baked thing like 15 or 20 different times out there over, just straight through. And, to some people it's their Bible. And Joe Rogan's stuff that he does is like somebody's Bible. So don't have a religious problem with it. They get along. They're like anti-gridlock. But yet at the same time, they're like capable people. But I'm sure someone will aluminum sulfate these people and give them like some sort of microwave poisoning thing to their brain that will tell them they are squid space aliens from Mars with blue arms, the number 10. But whatever it is, then they'll solve like things and make a new racial problem for everybody because the blue people with 10 arms and squid tentacles will not be represented properly in the government. But yet at the same time, I'm just going, when the black people complained about Dave Chappelle, that he didn't have enough other black people for all the pot smoking, I just go, he was the second guy I've ever heard that actually smoked weed. And I've only met one in person. I also got told that it was really sexist and racist whenever people were telling me that I was their Negro slave back in high school. That's how white supremacist, whatever the fucking hell it was, Dixon in the thing because the KKK is dead and they just break out stock footage. And then and that's the ones that are Catholic that are Latin that have to kill all the Protestants. You're going, so they're from Ireland? No. Anyway, and then they're all like, you do whatever I say, you fuck. It's like, I invited you down here for whatever it is. And everything. Get smacked around a couple times and just go, yes, master. Yes, master. Yes, master. I do what you say. I go away and I do what, I'm going to get that for you. And just pick up your shit and walk away. You do that like 6-10 times to them. One thing they want you to do is bow to them and call them master. And then they're just like, I'm like, God, what the hell are they smoking? You just need to walk this way. Look, the jagged rocks and cliff over there and everything. That's perfect. It's kind of like everybody with the same last name. You're a slave owner and everything else. Well, no, maybe that just means your family because it's like Whoopi Goldberg and how New York said that she'd go off there and mine all the gold for the city and everything else and just called her Goldberg and been like, we get away with it and can just say we're sorry. Go to hell. Minorities aren't allowed to own anybody. You keep going on about Christianity and everything else. And it's like the more you keep saying about Christianity and stuff, and this Christian nation, it's like, yeah, nobody with the same last name would have that. You're not allowed to descend from them. You're not allowed under Christianity to even give them your last name. Under slave law, you're not allowed to give them the last name of their slave owner. I mean, these things do not make sense with the laws at the time by whatever your agenda is that you're saying. If you really looked it up, instead of going, I made facts. I wrote this and said this was true. You must believe me. I have celebrity credibility. I have said this. I don't really care either, because everybody talks bad about me whenever I'm not there, or else they go home or anything else, and they say, well, most of us are undercover cops, so we have the right to talk about you after work. I can talk about my work and how they're facilitating stuff with you being terrorism and hiring you. Well, no, you really don't, or else you do. Therefore, I do. So no matter what type platform or anything else I say, bad-mouthing Walmart or anything else, or any of the other groups out there, or talking about anybody on here absolutely means nothing. Just like it does with you. It means nothing. Unless you're sitting around there plotting to get me one night when I go to my car, getting me whenever I carry my gun, and leave it in my car because there's no place to carry a gun, really, unless you want to walk around like a gangbanger on the sidewalks nowadays, because you got a weapons to carry permit. And go, I can have any one of my people on the local cell boosters in between buildings open your car because it has a GPS signal. And I can just push at it and pixelate where the GPS signal hooks up at, and it'll just dial down through there until it hits your car and open your locks. Take your gun out and go and shoot everybody. Then it's your fault because you didn't have it secured enough, because you didn't have a padlock on the side of your car, which anybody can take off with a pair of bolt cutters. Except for maybe these new people here who aren't LGBTQ. They're just regular people because they can't do anything. And it's so hard. But, all the hormones in the meat are made for only one group of people. And to make sure they continue on and make more of themselves. Anyway, moving right along with everything. Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan. Should they be on the same ticket or not? I mean, how can you really say that child molestation is against the LGBT community or else male rape? Isn't that the same sexual harassment for men, which they'll try and make it into a black-only thing, and everything else with Dave, that the Bombshells had to do? Or else more than what the Bombshells had to do from Fox News. How can this really be a fucking issue? Now, I know you're going to say you haven't watched the thing yet. You've only listened to people make commentary over it. Okay, I'm probably going to put an hour and a half of my time away here next week if I'm not fired, because people love hacking in, telling me I'm fired and everything else. And, there goes there. But whatever it is with the idiots of the world and whatever people talk about in this place, I just keep looking at them going, please, shut up. Grow a set. Anyway, I know that people probably won't be watching this one or anything else, and it's probably going to be not even categorized really that great. But in the political situation today of it, there's not a single issue anybody has. It's all the same old issues and the same things that really never worked for the last 40 years. Actually, probably just say 60 years, really. And it's absolutely ridiculous. But since most of everything with the LGBTQ community that I've really had in my face over it and everything else really is slavery, just like the three guys that were literally so popular, and they went on to have some people that went up there to Washington, D.C., and it's like, I was really happy for them. It's like, you don't know what they're planning for your people down there. And apparently they went up and tried raping two or three, basically Oriental girls, as they call them, because that's why they make them have to work the front end, because they got caught smoking, because it's still illegal on reservation. But anyway, with them and their two daughters that they have, which I go, okay, I guess you left the G community and went to the Q community and, the B community. Oh, yeah, I forgot. LGBTQ. Yeah, it runs together there. You went to the B community, but your whoever's went to the G community, and it's like, they don't think that we don't have those rights here. But, at the same time, that's just how you have to deal with people whenever you're dealing with minorities that aren't in the limelight yet. Anyway, moving right along with it, seriously, why do police hack the house and all the time else? Next time on it, for constant remote interrogations and everything, and anything else that can be to disfigure, disform, or hurt people, but yet you're assigned a black police officer to tell you that police have magic powers because you don't have a master's degree yet. And it's not required in the police department. So they all think that they're Harry Potter. And they're just trying to get by with all the mass murder they do and everything else, clearing out an area because they can get all their money back on politics, and sneak bullets out of a shipping facility through different groups of people and everything, so they can have enough ammunition that the United States federal government doesn't know about and sells, since they're the ones that made the locally here in the southern Appalachia area the ability to track anything with a ammunition tax that is required to be different from any other tax by your credit card receipts, so they can tell how much it is and it'll flag it in good faith with the local merchants, shall we say. This is Colin Dawson, the Political Minute. Thanks and have a wonderful day. Like and subscribe.